Whenever AMD, Intel, or Nvidia drop a flagship product, the budget-oriented goofball in me always asks a few questions. What happens when I pair it with low-end hardware? Will it blow up? Will it survive? What kind of performance can I expect? Thankfully, my friends created an avenue to answer that question. We decided to turn our curiosity into a little fun experimentation and collaboration. Who can build the fastest RTX 3080 computer with only $300? So here it is, one of the cheapest RTX 3080 computers you've ever seen on the internet. I actually don't recommend building this, by the way. The RTX 3080 is a very powerful video card. It pushes even $300 processors to their limits. So how can I create a viable computer to power the 3080 with only 300 bucks? Well, that's just the thing. I can't. So obviously none of us are going to be able to tap the full potential of the 3080, but we can ensure a few things to alleviate the pain. Firstly, the computer must have at least 16 gigs of memory. Anything less will result in a stuttery mess with the games that we're going to test on these machines. Number two, I want at least 4 cores and 8 threads. I would argue that's the bare minimum you can get if you want to pair it with a 3080. Some might say you want at least 6 cores, which I totally understand, but considering the constraints of our budget, 4 cores, 8 threads is the absolute minimum I want to meet. And the third thing, which is arguably the most important part, you need a decent power supply. This won't be my personal build, so I can get away with going with a cheaper power supply if I'm only going to be using it for testing purposes. Still, I want to ensure that the power supply is not going to be a safety or fire hazard for the rest of the computer. Even after we apply this criteria and apply the rules that we set for everyone, the two biggest ones being no local deals and no pre-built computers, we actually still have quite a few options for this computer. It does limit what I can purchase, but I think I picked up something pretty cool. What's up, guys? So here's the tea. So today's the last day to order all of our parts for this competition, and I had 2 tests this week and a few assignments due for my final senior project. I'm graduating. Woo, I guess. I just didn't really have a lot of time to actually search for computer components. So I'm gonna spend part of my Friday, just finished all of my exams, and we can go ahead and start looking for computer parts. Let's see, hardware swap. Ooh, this one's good. If I can get this. If I get that, that would be so good. That will be so good. And then we need to get a power supply because... Oh, this, perfect. Oh, there was a cheap case that I saw recently, but I don't know if it's still there. It was a deal literally 7 days ago, and it said that the deal lasted 7 days, so I don't know if it's still here. All right, so we're gonna do the DIY PC solo TR2, T2 or whatever for now. We're gonna try the Xeon option, but I wanna see if we can get a Ryzen CPU for super cheap. You know what? A little bit over a month ago, one of my mods messaged me about these really good deals that this guy on Overclockers UK had with these Ryzen motherboard bundles. It came with RAM, the CPU on the motherboard for under 200 bucks. So if those are still available, hey man, do you have any Ryzen combos left? Did anybody reply to me? Dang it, he sold it. All right, so i5 is out of the bag. Maybe that guy will respond soon. I'll go for the 2620 V3. Let's get some DDR4 memory. Yes. Yes. Perfect. No, it's slightly over. What's causing it to go over? The shipping. Okay, we can probably get a cheaper CPU cooler. Or maybe we can't. Can we find a cheaper power supply? I really shouldn't, but I'm so tempted. I have to take this risk. This took an hour, but I guess that's just what it is. I don't think I'm gonna win this competition. I seriously don't. Everybody, when you guys watch this, when this goes live, don't expect me to win because I don't think it's gonna happen. But we'll see. We'll see. So. Machinist Boutique motherboard. High quality. So if I'm being honest, I'm kind of nervous. I really don't know how well this power supply is going to handle the rest of the build, including the 3080. So, Apevia, please, for the love of God, do not let me down. Truth. Oh shoot, I forgot to plug the video cable in. Yes! I cannot believe. Okay, ugly blue BIOS, but it's working. Apevia, you gained some trust, maybe a little bit. Let me clean this up and then get to testing. In order to see how badly the system bottlenecks the 3080, we picked benchmarks that would stress pretty much everything but the video card. Now, I wasn't expecting the system at stock to do very well, but I did have a game plan for that. I'll explain more later. The computer is actually running pretty well right now, and I'm finishing up some benchmarks, but I want to do some optimization before I finalize my benchmark numbers. For one, I want to get the fastest memory speed as possible, so I'll go into the BIOS and see if I can change that. And two, I want to enable this turbo boost mod that is specific to X99 Xeons. To be honest, I haven't done a lot of research on it, but Brian from Tech Yes City has a video tutorial detailing the entire thing, so I'm going to try that out and hope for the best. But just in case something is bricked, I will run some benchmarks just to get some preliminary numbers, and it will also be good for comparison. So let's go do that. So it turns out that my Xeons only support super low clocked RAM of 1866. My board does go up to 3200 megahertz, but I couldn't run that speed even if I wanted to. I ran all of the benchmarks with the Xeon E5-2620 V3 and 16 gigs of DDR4 memory, both at stock, and the results are, they're not the greatest, to put it lightly, but see for yourself. Like I mentioned, the results are not the greatest, but I came into the situation expecting that. Thankfully, there is a workaround for V3 Xeons, unlocking the all-core turbo boost. Right now, the 2620 has a base clock of 2.4 gigahertz and an all-core boost of 2.6. With this modification, the Xeon will be able to hit 3.2 gigahertz across every single core. Because this is a Haswell chip, we can expect Ryzen 5 1600 performance without the added cost. That was my plan all along. My plan seemed perfect, infallible, some might say, until it wasn't. Everything was going great until I tried to update the BIOS. It's not working. I think I may have bricked something. I was a bit nervous, but I did try to troubleshoot, and I also sent Brian a message hoping that he could bring some insight to the situation. That's when I decided to take a look at the eBay listing of my motherboard to get some information, and pieces of the puzzle started coming together. I think the computer is a goner, and I'll explain why. The board that I have, it came in a box that said machinist. The listing also had it as machinist in the description. I didn't really think anything of it. I just kind of took the box with the word machinist as the brand of the motherboard. I decided to go look on the eBay listing where I actually bought the board. I noticed a few red flags. First of all, from the seller. The description is just completely inaccurate. It says that it supports V1 and V2 processors, which isn't the case. And it says that it supports DDR3 when it in fact supports DDR4. That is not good. Anyway, I go and check the description of the listing to see if I can find any information about the motherboard itself. It has the model number, which is like a ZX something. The OEM is not machinist. The OEM is Adermitter. I'm not sure. I've seen them before. The point is, I flashed a machinist BIOS on a non-machinist board. So the motherboard is probably freaking out right now. Might be bricked. So unless I'm completely wrong, maybe machinist is just not an OEM and they're a brand. So unless I'm completely wrong about how machinist works in the motherboard space, who they are, I believe I've bricked my board. The good thing is, the bright side is that I did get all the benchmarks that I need prior to flashing the BIOS, and I'm so glad I did, because I had a feeling that something like this had a moderately high chance of happening. At least now I know that I won't win anything, so I'll try to shoot for last place, keep my dignity intact. So a $300 PC will technically work with an RTX 3080, and that wasn't something that I was worried about at all. The performance was the problem. It leaves a lot to be desired. For example, Guru 3D reviewed the 3080 with an i9-9900K. In TimeSpy, their overall score was around 15,000. My overall score was just under 11,000. That's a 40% difference. With the Xeon, I was getting RTX 2080 performance with an RTX 3080. That's a whole generation worse. If I got my hands on that i5 from Hardware Swap, that would have increased performance noticeably, and no doubt, if I was able to get the all-core turbo boost, we would see an increase in performance as well. And that segues into my next point. I need to be more diligent. Sellers need to be clearer. The mixed signals that I got from the board, machinist by packaging and BIOS splash screen, and then Adermitter by model number and looks, forced me to take a risk unbeknownst to me that led to a less than happy ending. So yeah, double check everything. And lastly, I'm glad that the Apevia power supply worked. That was honestly my biggest fear. I'm by no means a power supply expert. I just usually go for the reputable brands that I know of. You know, your Seasonics, the Corsairs, some of your EVGAs. And so when I see a brand like Apevia or Raidmax, I usually avoid it like a plague. But after reading the Apevia power supply review, it seems like a half decent unit, and especially at the price that I got it, it's pretty good for what it offers. I'm now realizing that I could be a little bit more agnostic with my power supply brands, and it really does differ from model to model. So I'll probably be doing more research when I'm picking out PC parts and choosing the power supply. With all of that being said, this PC was definitely not a good idea. The only thing that I would really change is giving myself more time to look for computer hardware deals. Regardless, this was a super fun computer to build, and I'm very happy that you guys got to see it too. It's actually my first 3080 computer build. Who would have thought? If you guys want to see all of the other entries who probably blew me out of the water, then you can click the playlist in the description below. Make sure you watch all of them, comment on all of them. Let me know on Twitter whose you think is the best. And we have an exciting judging video coming out soon too. Follow me on all my socials at OzTalksHW on literally everything. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace. I wanna see your face, smile.